So on this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, from piggy banks to stocks, welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Shawn Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and here with me again is your financial coach, George Corbello. How you doing, George?
How are you doing? Dude, I'm freaking out. Can I just say this right now? I am, again, the house is going well, but now it's, hey, it's we got to get ready for closing, and then they give us the closing costs, and we all pass out, and then wake up and like, holy cow, what are we doing here? But very excited. Getting, looks like closing might be in December, man. I thought it was going to be like February of next year. Usually, it's the projects get pushed out. How is it now? Everything gets pulled in. So it must be, a different type of economy or what's happening with these homes. It
is definitely a different type of economy, and I don't know. Fortunately for me, unfortunately, I have no idea yet. But I think my business is ticking up. So good to close earlier rather than later.
True.
I think the longer you wait to close, the higher you're going to get in interest rates.
Yeah, the rates I've already started looking at. I mean, again, remember when it was like 3.75 and people were complaining, my goodness, that's so high. And now I'm looking at maybe between 7 and 8%. And it's like still not bad. I mean, you think about it, but at the same time, it's like where we used to be in complaining. It's like, wow, 70. I can't wait to refi already. If I haven't even gotten into the mortgage, and I'm already getting ready.
I remember before the recession, 7-8% was a tremendous interest rate. Yeah. Everybody wanted 7 to 8%.
Yeah. Well, again, let's go back. We're aging ourselves, right? But we're back in the 70s. When my grandpa used to, it was what was it? 10%, 15%.
They were
like
double digit rates. Yeah, so I remember that.
I won't complain, but let's not repeat history, folks. That's what we're that's what we're here for.
By the way, I don't know. I forwarded you, just to follow up on a couple of episodes ago.
Yep. I
forwarded you on, I can't remember. I think it was Instagram. I think I forwarded you. There's a thing on there. It says, "You've heard about girl math. You've heard about boy math. Have you heard about dog math?" And it's like, if you pet me for 1 hour, you've pet me for 3 days. If you wait 1 hour to feed me, you haven't fed me at all. If I eat one meal, you haven't fed me at all. I'm still hungry. Or
there
something
you go.
Like that.
You know what? I think we need to do an episode on dog math now.
On dog math. But we're not going to do an episode on dog math today. We actually have a guest for you all today. So our guest this week is a mother and a CPA with a rich background as a CFO, a tax accountant, and an auditor. Over the last 11 years, she's helped thousands of parents raise financially smart kids with her Instagram platform, which we'll give you in a minute. She has over 128,000 followers on Instagram. In an effort to empower young minds with financial wisdom and excitement for investing, she's authored a children's book called From Piggy Banks to Stocks, the ultimate guide for a young investor. Now, it's scheduled to launch in November, November of 2023, which is when this episode is going to come out. So you can go to Amazon.com, type in From Piggy Banks to Stocks. The book came right up. You can pre-order your copy, or if it's available, you can order your copy there. She's a first-generation immigrant from war-torn Bosnia, where her family lost everything in the war. She immigrated to the U.S. or to Canada? Canada, with 2 suitcases and $50 when she was 15. She lived in government shelters and housing, had 2 part-time jobs when she was a teen. The early hardships helped instill in her a profound understanding of financial stability and independence. By age 32, her and her husband had achieved mortgage freedom and successfully paid off $60,000 in student loans and other debt. Welcome our guest, Maya Corbic. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you so much for having me here, Shawn and George. I'm really excited to be on your show.
Yeah. So the Instagram I said I would tell everybody is Teach Kids Money, teach.kids.money. So if you want to find Maya and you want to find From Piggy Banks to Stocks, go on Instagram to teach.kids.money. And if you want to pre-order the book, like I said, it's available. You go to Amazon.com, either type in Maya Corbic or type in From Piggy Banks to Stocks, and you'll see it right away. It's very kid looking. Is that the
Yeah.
right word?
Nice colors.
Yeah.
It definitely cover stands out for sure.
So tell us why, and I think I kind of touched on it in your bio, but I guess from the outset, why this book? What made you inclined to write this book?
So, I've been actually helping parents teach kids about money for the past 11 years, and I've covered all different topics from budgeting to savings, even credit card debt. But investing is one topic that intimidates everyone. And, I feel that's the topic that we should be teaching our kids and familiarizing them with and making them feel comfortable with it from a very young age so that when they become adults, they don't feel intimidated by investing. Investing, I find that it's actually really easy to pick up once you know the basics. And so this book it is very colorful, as you said. It has lots of pictures. It has some workbook areas where people can fill out stuff. But when I was testing it, I tested it with parents that have children, and it wasn't just the children that were learning from it. It was also the parents, because some of them came back to me and they said, you know what, I finally actually understand the stocks and the stock market and how it works. So I just felt that there are a lot of beautiful, amazing books on investing, but I find a lot of them intimidating. And sometimes some of them can be boring, even though they provide very, very valuable information. So I guess the reason why I had this book was I wanted to write it in such a way that is friendly and inviting, and it's written in a language that a 10-year-old can understand.
Well, if it's got coloring pages in it, then it's for George.
Yeah, I'll take that very easily. But most adults probably would be like, yeah, this is great.
Well, and that's actually, you answered it. So one of the questions I was going to ask you is there, what age range is the book geared towards? But I think you said right around 10 years old.
Yeah, definitely 10 years old and up. So, as I said, like teenagers, adults, I mean, it's meant to be like one of those books from like dummy series, right? Like, don't feel bad if you pick up this book and you're like, hey, this looks like it's for kids, but I can learn some of this stuff.
Right. No, that might be a benefit. To be honest with you, sometimes you have to read the material before giving it to the 10-year-old anyway. So there may be some things that some of our parents, I mean, what's the first thing that most parents say? Man, I wish I learned this when I was, that age. So it might be a good idea to have the parents get that foundation from the book and then be able to maybe read it alongside their child to be able to pick up and ask the questions. Let's talk about what you just read. What does that mean to you? So that everyone is learning as part of that reading journey.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. So one of the perks of being a podcast host is I got an advanced copy of the book myself, and so I appreciate it. Honestly, haven't dove into it yet because what I want to do is read it with my kids, and so I've got a 12-year-old and I've got a 9-year-old. So I might dive into it with both of my kids. Maybe a year early. My 9-year-old's kind of smart, so I'll dive into
big deal, right?
He's kind of he's smarter than I was when I was 9. So I'll dive into it. I'm looking forward to reading it with the two of them. It's just right now they're working on schoolwork, so. Yeah. Ask them to read anything outside of what their teachers want them to do.
If it's not Pokemon related or anything that's...
If it's not Pokemon and there's no grade reliant on it.
Gotcha.
They're not interested in it.
All right. That's a summer thing that you gotta, all right.
But, I mean, I remember when I was young, I had someone buy for me, the way I started learning about this kind of stuff, I had someone buy for me 5 shares of AT&T stock.
Okay.
And I thought I was the man. I owned AT&T. So, what kind of stuff do you go into that kind of stuff? And what that did is it got me looking at the newspaper to see, well, what did the stock do? Did it go up? Did it go down? Did it split? What does splitting mean? I mean, I assume that's the kind of stuff you go into in the book.
Yeah, we definitely talk about that. And I always encourage parents, especially on my Instagram account that you mentioned, there are ways to actually involve kids and teach them about investing very early on. So one thing that I do with my own children, I have a 16 and a 14-year-old, but for the past 10 years, what I would do is if it's their birthday or for Christmas, in addition to like a regular gift, I would buy them a share of stock. And so it would be at the beginning, I used to buy shares of stocks of a company that they knew, whose products they used. For example, Amazon or Netflix. Now, I'm not endorsing any of these companies, just kind of like it's easier to talk to kids about owning, as you said, like they feel proud owning a piece of Netflix, or they also had Disney stocks. So it's like, oh, we were the family that owned Disney, right? It seems really, really
Right.
cool. And as they got older, I started teaching them a little bit more about investing in ETFs and index funds. So now when it's their birthday or if it's Christmas, I do buy them a share of an ETF that is part of their portfolio.
Yeah, and again, we're not, like you said. I want to make sure everybody understands. We're not giving you investment advice.
Right.
We're not telling you
Yes.
which ones. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the way to, like I said, it was a big deal for me that I knew AT&T, which probably dates how old I am.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it was a company that I
Not the cell
that I
phone
knew.
company, the one that had landlines.
Yeah,
What's a landline, Dad?
rotary phones.
A little old there, buddy.
So, what do you? I mean, one of the things is, the readers will gain knowledge and confidence to start investing. What do you think is one of those things that a kid will? Why is it that kids may not want to be investors? They may not think I need to invest. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think it's just because, we live in a consumer-oriented
Yeah.
society. We are pushed to buy products. We're pushed to think like consumers, not necessarily investors, right? So, and I find that the issue is too that many, let's say, parents who are people who are parents nowadays, they were not taught how to invest or become investors, and they're intimidated by it. So if they were never taught, and if they never teach themselves, then how can they teach their own kids? Over the past 11 years, there has been a lot done to introduce financial literacy in schools. There are a lot of non-for-profit organizations out there, and this is all great, but I feel like we still have a long way to go. And what I mean by that is that, for example, we don't teach kids investing in school. So now we're teaching them to budget. We're teaching them to understand the difference between needs and wants.
Right.
But if you want your child to learn about investing, it has to come from you.
Yep.
And it's whether it's you teaching them or you signing them up for a course to teach, or if you never teach them, then your child will have to learn on their own. Or maybe they will learn because, that's going to become their profession. Maybe they're going to be an investment broker, but otherwise they're not going to learn, and they're going to rely. I mean, we all know investing is important, right? So they may rely on people giving them advice. They may not necessarily choose the right people to rely on. And if they're not educated, they can pay a lot in fees. And, it can not necessarily be good for them.
Yeah, and I've seen on your Instagram itself that you talk about investing. It doesn't take a lot to invest itself. You have hints here for parents, like make your child a millionaire itself. And this was one of your recent posts where, again, every birthday you invest $250, and from 0 to 18, and you put it into again account, do the investing. They can net almost $1 million when they get to retirement age. Adding the birthday and the Christmas, because we focus on the consumption of those kind of holidays, like, oh, we buy all these gifts, but there's opportunities where if we just take those two big occasions and invest, what we would spend in gifts in the child during the time that they're growing up, what they would have when they're ready for their golden years itself. It's amazing that you can have $1 million to $2 million from an investment that just is those first 18 years. So for me, it's like those types of tips for parents. You don't realize like the earlier you start in investing is a good thing. And I think, is that something you struggle with some of the parents that you've been kind of managing? Because, they've probably don't have the education to be able to teach the kids, but these simple tips are the things that help them, I would imagine.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting that you say that. Sometimes parents are surprised to, like, when I post like that, right? They're really surprised to see that. And they actually realize that it doesn't take much for them to invest to help their child become a millionaire. some of them say, well, why would I invest now? Like they'll only get to use that money when they're 65, but it doesn't really matter. You're not investing a lot. And a lot of them are just like a lot of these posts that I create on Instagram, I suggest that, you help your child invest until they're 18, from
Yeah.
birth to the age of 18. And then really the compound interest and the long time horizon that our kids have ahead of us, because time is their biggest asset.
Right.
Those two things, they do the heavy lifting of the wealth creation. So our one thing that our kids have that we don't have much of is the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the sooner they start investing, the better. And a lot of times I tell parents, like, just invest $10 a week as soon as they're born. And then as soon as they can actually start to earn some money, teach them to take a portion of their earnings, let's say from a part-time job, and so they can invest that money themselves and continue to invest. Make that a habit, because they say that 95% of what we do on autopilot. We do it out of the habit. So let's instill those really good habits. And this is just a bare minimum. I mean, if you want to invest more, if your child wants to invest more, they can. And there's an opportunity for them when they graduate from college that they could potentially have a down payment for, let's say, a home, and then they can house hack. Maybe they cannot afford the whole home, but if they house hack and have roommates, they can pay for that home. There's so many opportunities. If we invest for them early, we give them that starting capital that they can use later on in life, and it can really benefit them.
Yeah, and it's one of those kind of things that I think as a parent, you realize I've started to do a lot of those kind of things with my kids. It's they're at age, mine's are 20 and 15, and both of them, it's like we have jobs. Some of them are side hustles, some of them are actually, and a lot of it has been teaching them, again, three things that we do with money, right? We can save it, we can spend it, and we can give it. And what I've been trying to focus on is how to get a balance between the three. So, and of course I tell Shawn itself, the pay yourself is a huge, we tend to forget, like, oh, we'll pay for Apple, or we'll pay for, debt and all these kind of things, but we won't realize, like, we're not going to get habits of giving the money or saving the money itself if we don't put those first in how we do things.
And it's funny because one of the first posts I pulled up on your Instagram page was a post about how to teach kids delayed gratification.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those kind, but again, we're in that society right now it's consumption, it's now, I got to feel good now, and not realize that, again, if there is good in that, but most of the time when it comes to money, it's how do I help myself so that the person in 10 years is saying thank you to the person today. And I think that's, we tend to forget. We're thinking, like, we'll live forever, I'll have plenty of time. And we don't realize that that's not always the case as we get as we approach 50.
Yeah, I was going to add, you're right. Like, there is good in that. I mean, but at the same time, I guess I have a little bit of a different perspective being an immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about North America, I am Canadian, and we're kind of like a little cousin or little brother or sister of US,
We're
right?
all connected.
So, yeah, things are very similar in Canada, like very similar to how they are in the US. So one thing that kind of struck me when I first immigrated was the abundance and the opportunity, and really how much people spend. Because when you come from a developing country, what's so normal to us here is not normal over there. People don't spend as easily. They have to delay gratification. They're sort of forced to. So, because of that, I try to teach my children to delay gratification. It is really hard because, I have kids with two different money personalities, and one is a natural saver, another one is a natural spender. And actually, a money personality is a real thing out there. We're all born with different money personalities, even if we grow up in a home with like same parents, right? So it's really, about recognizing what kind of money personality your child has, and then, trying to work with that money personality and helping them align it with your family money values. And so, a lot of times people tell me, oh, your son is a natural saver. That's great. But at the same time, like, we had to teach him how to be more giving. Yeah. We had to teach him that it's okay to spend money if you're spending it on something that you're going to enjoy. Just stashing your money and having that money sit in the bank account, but you walking in a ripped pair of jeans, although those are like
Well, it's in
popular
style
now,
now.
right?
Fashionable now, yeah.
But yeah, but like you know, with sneakers, that have holes, like that's not the point, right? Like you
Right.
should enjoy your life, but enjoy it responsibly. So it's teaching them all these things and really aligning what they do with their money with our family beliefs.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's important across the board. In other words, rather than me reading this book with my boys, I should be reading it with my wife and my boys.
Right.
To make sure all four of us are kind of in the same place. Because that's what I'm realizing now is a lot of my beliefs around money come from my dad. And so I need to now pass those. And they were good. My family was one of, it's not, we're not believers in, money is the root of all evil.
No,
And,
right.
we don't believe any of that stuff. So now trying to instill those in my boys. So,
Well, I mean, you touched upon it too, and one thing that we like having that conversation with kids. We think about like, well, are they the right age? What are some of the advice you give to parents in regards to like just talking to kids? When is the right time to have that conversation about maybe their situation or just how to start working with money itself? And we would talk about the book being for 10-year-olds, but what is the right time to have those types of conversations?
So usually I like to start having those conversations when kids are as young as 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I can come back to that, but I do want to say that even parents of toddlers are instilling some money habits in their children, and they're doing it inadvertently without realizing. So an example would be, like teaching our kids to share toys. It's like same thing goes with money, right? Like you're teaching your child to donate. So some of these skills, they eventually translate from like whatever we teach them in toddlerhood to actually money skills. If you're building a tower or if you're building a castle with your toddler, there's a limited number of or limited amount of blocks that you can use to build this tower. So you're going to use it to create the most beautiful tower you possibly can. Same goes with money, right? There's a limited supply of money, and we're going to use that to create the most beautiful life we can, right? But when I really, really start talking to kids about money or start teaching money lessons is when they're about 4 or 5 years old. And I like to start teaching them to understand the difference between needs and wants. At that age, they are actually capable of understanding the difference between the two, and they understand that we need to take care of our needs first before we can take care of our wants. And then around age 5 or 6, I introduce allowance, and slowly after that, like once they master certain I guess financial literacy topics, then I would introduce additional topics or more advanced versions of the topics that they learned before. Like, for example, with needs versus wants, it's kind of black and white when they're 4. But when they are 12, it's kind of like, okay, well, there is a gray area.
Tons.
Meaning like, okay, we all need shoes, but do we need designer shoes? Do
Right.
we need Air Jordans, right?
Right.
So it just progresses from that point on.
So it actually reminded me of something to teach the kids at an early age, especially as this episode comes out, will be a few days beyond Halloween.
Ooh.
So we can use Halloween to teach our kids about taxes.
Oh, please elaborate.
All the candy they can't get that candy back in the house unless they pay mom and dad a candy tax.
Oh boy.
Right? So from the CPA, we teach them about taxes.
Oh,
there you go.
You'll get a mutiny on that one, buddy.
Well, and as a diabetic, I probably shouldn't teach them too much of a lesson.
There you go. I love it.
About taxes. But no, I was again forking around the Instagram page, and the book is really just scratching the surface. You've got a I forget what you call it, not an investor club,
Wealthy Kids Investment Club.
Wealthy Kids Investment Club. You've got all kinds of videos, all kinds of information. So I would definitely suggest anyone who's interested to check out your and again, it's teach.kids.money. I did see something on there that I guess when you get to a lot of followers, you get people that try to copy and steal.
So that's a big problem, and I would really like to caution everybody who's listening. Make sure you follow. I do have a blue check mark next to my
Yeah,
name.
I saw that.
There are a lot of scammers. They will contact you. They will pretend that it's me. And unfortunately, some people actually would fall for it. Like they would sell them cryptocurrency, which is something I do not
Oh,
sell.
wow.
So please be careful.
Well, you know, things on the internet. I mean, you get a lot of good information, but you still have to be worried about fraud that is out there. So look for that check mark.
Yeah. So I don't know. As we get kind of towards the end, anything in particular you wanted to mention that we haven't already talked about?
Well, I mean, I just like to, if that's okay, I'd like to just quickly talk about allowance because I did mention it.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
please.
I was going to ask you because my 12-year-old is asking us a lot about allowance. So yes, I want you to talk about it, but I also
Got
want
excited there, buddy. It was like
what's the going rate for allowance these days?
with inflation.
Okay, so it's not as simple as that. So the thing about allowance, and the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because this is one question that I get quite often. So before I tell you anything about allowance, there's actually 4 different ways that you can do allowance, and there is no right or wrong way to do it. Parents usually, like I've seen arguments on internet over, or like social media over this. And the reason why I say there is no right or wrong way is because teaching kids about money is kind of like parenting. We all parent in a different way. We all parent based on our family values. So same goes for money. So when you do allowance, I'd like you to think of allowance as a teaching tool, not a gift. A lot of times people think that when they give allowance, they're actually gifting money to their kid. But that's not it. Allowance is really a tool that's meant to teach our children how to save money, how to spend it smartly, how to give it. And all that has to align with your family values, and they need to do it the way you do it. So the 4 allowance methods are obviously the chores method, where the kids do the chore and then you pay them an allowance. And parents who support this allowance method, they believe that they want to teach their child that money doesn't grow on trees. They have to work hard for the money. And if they don't work hard, they don't get paid. Now, there is an allowance method that's not tied to chores at all. And what happens with this allowance method is that parents give a certain amount of money to their child every week or every 2 weeks. And but the kids still have certain chores that they have to do. Now, parents believe that the kids should be doing these chores because they're a contributing member of the household, not because somebody's paying them, because they believe that when the child becomes an adult, nobody's going to pay them to make their bed or empty out the dishwasher. So they continue to pay allowance regardless of whether the child did the chores or not, because the allowance is a teaching tool. Yeah. But if the child doesn't do the chores, they will take away screen time or play dates or a party or whatever it is that child wanted to do. And then there's a third method, which is the mix of the first 2. It's a hybrid method. And these parents, they give a certain amount of money to their child every week to do, for the allowance, so to learn how to manage money properly. But the child also has an opportunity to earn extra money. And they would, give opportunities to their child to maybe do some tasks that they would pay somebody else to do, like wash their car or maybe shred their confidential documents and so on. And then the 4th method is really not giving allowance at all, because there are parents out there, they do not believe in allowance. And that's okay.
Right.
But I do believe that these parents should provide some opportunities for these kids to manage money. So it would be like, for example, if the child's birthday is coming up, use that as an opportunity to teach them how to budget.
Right.
And so at the beginning, you can help them create a budget. You can help them stick with the budget. But as they get older, they can, maybe take this on by themselves, or back to school shopping budget. Anyways, the point is to really give them opportunities to manage that money and to learn from those experiences while they are, under your, you're actually helping them out. Yeah. And so mistakes are okay. Encourage mistakes, because you want them to make those mistakes now with small amounts of money rather than large amounts of money when they maybe have a 6-figure salary and they're an adult.
So yeah. The one thing I've noticed as well, and I've got a few clients with kids in college, and realize like the first time they're actually budgeting and doing the things that we're saying itself, they're in college. And we, again, we try to help our kids and really make life easy, just enjoy being a kid, but instilling some of these life skills when they're young allows them to, you're right, make mistakes when they're younger. And then of course, when they're actually out in the real world is brutal. And if if some of us, we learn some of these hard lessons when we're adults, it just hurts. Because you're right, buying the wrong home can have, not investing in the right, it could have a long-lasting impact. So I think, it's
and so I felt terrible this weekend, but thank you, Maya, because I feel better now. We went. My older son plays soccer. He's on a competitive travel soccer club, and I didn't realize these existed in soccer. They're called grip socks.
Okay.
And so, when like you go to a bounce house and the socks have the rubber grip, they sell those for soccer players. So I guess if your shoes aren't tied well enough,
right, they won't
kick
slip
the ball, your shoe doesn't go flying off. So he wanted some grip socks, and he wanted a new soccer ball. And so my son just celebrated a birthday the beginning of October, and so he got a bunch of money in. So we went to the sporting goods store. We went over to Dick's Sporting Goods, and he found 2 pairs of socks and a ball that he wanted. The problem is the 2 socks and the ball together, I think, came out to like $60, and I think he only had like $45 in cash.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, well, what are you going to do, buddy?
Yeah.
And he put one of the socks back, and he said, well, I'll just buy this 1 pair of socks and I'll buy the ball. And I was so proud of him that I bought the other pair of socks.
Okay, yeah.
So on the one hand, I felt bad because...
Good job, Dad.
Well, that's why I say I feel bad because he ended up getting everything that he wanted, but I felt good because...
He made the choice.
Here's my budget, and I'm going to make the choice to stay under my budget. And so I rewarded him for that by getting him the other pair of socks.
So Dad's got some things to still learn. Apparently, we still got some things. But again, not a bad lesson. You're right. It's just one of those kind of things that, they're thinking in that way, and that's what we want.
Right.
The follow-through, we probably need to still work on Dad here a little bit.
I probably should have saved the other pair of socks for the holidays or...
something like that. But that's okay.
Well, that's funny. My mom always used to joke with me and said, you're getting socks for the holidays. I guess this year I could have gotten my son socks, and it would have been okay.
It would have been okay.
So... Well, thank you. We really appreciate
Maya.
you being a guest, Maya. And again, Amazon.com, From Piggy Banks to Stocks. Also look up on Amazon. It's by Maya Corbic. Your last name, Corbic, From Piggy Banks to Stocks. Thank you. We appreciate you being a guest on this week's show.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, George. I really had fun talking to you.
So a couple other things I wanted to follow up real quick. First of all, our budget. We need to talk about our sponsor, Sam Cohen. He owns Attorneys First Insurance. They write errors and omissions, malpractice insurance for attorneys and title companies all over the country. I'll have to see if he writes insurance in Canada.
There you go.
I don't know. I'll ask him. But I know he writes insurance for attorneys and title companies all over the country. You can reach him, Sam at attorneysfirst.com, or just go to his website, which is attorneysfirst.com. We've also got our Patreon page if you want to support us, and we're gonna keep Maya around for a little bit and talk to her in the after pod here. So if you want to see that, you got to be a patron of ours. So go to patreon.com/crushingdebt. Speaking of crushing, George, you're getting beat up on the cereal comment from a couple weeks ago. So
Maya, what do you do? Do you put the cereal first and then the milk, or the milk first and the cereal? Because that's a huge debate on the internets now.
I think I haven't had cereal in a long time for breakfast, but when I used to have it, it would be cereal then milk.
Is
that wrong?
That's the right way to do it, but apparently, no. You have to have the cereal has to float on the milk. It's whatever.
No, I think, Maya, you are in the majority.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
You are definitely.
Have I been doing it wrong all this time?
No. You are definitely in the majority. So, anyway. I think that'll, before this becomes any bigger of a train wreck of an end of an episode.
I think we're good.
I will wrap it up here. But definitely, thank you again to Maya, Amazon.com, From Piggy Banks to Stocks. Definitely a book that we would recommend that'll have you help you have more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money. And we will talk to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.